What up, what up? It's your boy Scott, slapping as usual. Been a little bit, couple weeks or so before I made a video, but back at it again. Got a topic for today. I'm down here at Kimmel Park, Mill City, Oregon. Beautiful Mill City. Do a little panoramic. So it's a beautiful park, but probably the best part is down towards the river because you got a trail that parallels the river and the park. So that's where we're going to be headed while I talk about comic book talk. You know, grew up as a kid loving that. And I was very picky because I was kind of mature for the comic book realm, even though I was at the age for it, because I was already reading mature stuff like Stephen King, you know, the horror elements. I was reading science fiction greats like Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and all that. So a lot of it was silly to me. But titles like X-Men, Wolverine, Conan the Barbarian, that was where it was at for me. And however, Marvel Comics also released a black and white magazine that was called The Savage Sword of Conan the Barbarian. And I said it before, I'll say it again, he's tied with Wolverine as my favorite fictional character ever. And there's ample reasons why he should be on my list. Everything about that character was mature, from the books that were started by Robert E. Howard, you know, L. Sprague de Camp, Robert Jordan, you know, to some of the comic book legends that did Conan the Barbarian series, the comic book, and then of course The Savage Sword of Conan the Barbarian, which was a black and white inked magazine featuring the great Conan. The stories were mature. They pushed the envelope for what they could get away with quite a bit. And my mom, you know, was pretty strict and disciplined me and my brother quite a bit when we did dumb shit. But, you know, she knew I loved this stuff, so she would let me read them, let me buy them with my allowance money, all of that stuff. So yeah, The Savage Sword of Conan the Barbarian. That's what we're talking about. I'm gonna flip this around, let you guys see where we're headed. Don't need to see my mug the whole time, but we got the river down here. So yeah, like I said, you know, growing up, little, got some allowance money, precious allowance money, couldn't wait for the next issues to drop. X-Men, Wolverine, you know, Conan. However, you have to wait. You gotta wait a month. It's monthly. And the stories are so awesome, the artwork was so awesome that, you know, you can hardly wait that long. Makes you work harder and try and get more money, you know, so you could clear out the comic book section. At any rate, yeah. So eagerly awaiting the next issue, and I would walk to the store with my money, and usually I would hit up like convenience stores with the magazine racks and the comic book racks. And I just remember either walking up to the store or rolling in with my mom driving in. I'm just peering through the window before I even get in the store, looking to see if it's there, and sure enough, the new shipment was in, and I'm just going to town flipping through those comic books, you know. But when it came to the magazine, like, that was kind of off to the side with the other magazines a little bit, and I could spot it instantly if there was a new issue out. So getting your hands on it, like, I started to realize the value of my comic books, and you need to be careful. You know, those are your babies. They're going to be worth something. So I was very careful how I picked the comic books up. I would scowl at whoever was waiting on me if they mishandled my babies, in the slightest. I'm a little kid, scrutinizing their movements. And I would just baby that issue all the way back home. And then, and I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't look and see what was inside until I got home. That's how much I look forward to these. And, the comic book realm started with my dad, who worked at a store. He would just bring stacks of comic books home, like not all the time, but when he did, they'd be like 5 inches thick worth of comic books. And back then, you're looking at 25 cents a pop. And it just pleased the shit out of me, man. I had a little brother that didn't really like the comic books at that stage as much as me, so I kind of took over all of those. But yeah, that's how that began. And usually, back then it was Circle K, which is still a thing, but around here they kind of got bought out by 7-Eleven. But that's where the damage was done with my allowance money, getting those comic books. Video games kind of came later, being more expensive. But I never did stop collecting comics until early 2000s, and then I gave up on it because I was disgusted with the content. And that was back before, this woke DEI crap. I was already burned out on it. But I still love the material. I still love the characters. Even, with me pushing 50 years old, just a lot of good memories. And, so Savage Sword of Conan, I would get my hands on that, come home and just be enthralled. And I would just read it once, pour over that again and again and again. And so some of the artists, like I hope I'm getting his name right, Gary Quapiz was like my favorite artist overall. And he would be inked by a guy named Ernie Chan, who's my favorite inker ever. And that's over greats like Scott Williams, who inked Jim Lee forever, and probably still does a little bit to this day. I don't know. But Ernie's like over any of them because, man, he doesn't just trace. He's got like a bomb-ass style that kind of takes over, And a lot of pencilers don't feel too happy with that and too at ease with that because your style, the way you draw, is kind of getting overridden a little bit, but whatever. Ernie Chan's like the GOAT to me. I did look into Ernie Chan's other artwork and I wasn't really feeling it. That doesn't mean I don't respect what he does or his art. Just got preferences, stuff I might like a little bit more. But God, he just made that stuff look so awesome. And the depictions of the fights, the battles, the monsters were just unbelievable with these writers. Sometimes you would get like an artist I didn't really like or appreciate too much. But that was rare. Very rare. So yeah, I collected the shit out of Savage Sword of Conan, the Barbarian. And then I would go to comic book shops, Got to start filling in the back issues, right? Got to go get those back issues. Except those are worth a lot. They cost a lot. And so I'd be saving my money even more because I'm going to get those, And back then, I started figuring out I need to, backfill and get these back issues so I can get the complete story, overall. But when I would go into the comic book shops, I wouldn't necessarily be looking for anything in particular. It's just grab whatever looks awesome, and that'll help fill in your collection. So normally I would go by the artwork on the cover, which is dumb. But it's not like you can really look through the pages because, it's in a plastic bag with a price tag on it. You're not really going to pull that fucker out of there, They're not going to like that too much. But even then, with the hit and miss prospect of that, it was almost always a hit and never a miss. That's how awesome that series was. It never let me down. Other side of Kimmel Park. So yeah, that story was every bit as cutthroat and mature as, you know, the books. And like I said, they really pushed the adult nature of it, like Conan, his relationships with women, which was a lot. And yeah, they pushed it. But it was never anything that was like tasteless, or, you know, that wasn't completely like classless, like it wasn't classy. Okay, these are barbaric times or whatnot. So yeah, and now usually the cover artist was Joe Jusko, a painter, and God, he's right up there with like the all-time fantasy painter greats like Frank Frazetta. Just his depictions is what drew me in. And then you're going from colorful painting to black and white, you know, penciling and inking, which wasn't a shock like a lot of people might think if you haven't read something like that or flipped through pages of a black and white magazine. You just go right into it, and it's an awesome story. You know, to this day, I love, like, you know, the sword and sorcery, the fantasy elements, monsters, you know, and all of that stuff. I love role-playing games. You know, pen and paper or video games, you name it, love the whole thing. Now, Conan the Barbarian, the comic book, the colored comic book, very similar, just a little more, you know, superhero-y, I would say. Still had all of the fantasy elements. This is some really old stuff going on here at Kimmel Park. A lot of things change, but some things are still staying the same a little bit, which is fine. I'm like that over here, that little wall. We're gonna make our way over there. Now, the two versions of Conan weren't the same. It's not the same Conan, okay? But they're very close. Like, I just don't know how much I would tell the difference, okay? Like, so what would be a difference? Well, the Conan, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan, isn't Robert E. Howard's Conan. They're not the same, even though I love Schwarzenegger's Conan in that version too. But that wasn't the vision. Oliver Stone wrote that. Who else? Somebody else well-known helped him out with that. I'm drawing a blank right now. But even the comic book version is very mature, you know. But like I said, there's just more superhero-ish elements in it. I'm not saying there's any superheroes in it, but it was just kind of more, you know, more of that, a little bit more. But like I said, this isn't about the Conan comic book, even though that's right there with my favorite comic book series ever, and that would be X-Men and the Wolverine solo. So, but here's the thing, they were both releasing at the same time, so I didn't just go up there and grab the magazine, you know. I'm getting the comic book too, you know. So that didn't always happen. They didn't always come out at the same time, but when they did, you know, I'm locked and loaded, loving that. But everything about Conan I love. The magazine just gave me so much joy. I don't think there's anything else in the comic book realm that really knocked it out of the park for me when I was younger. Like I said, my eyes would get all big when I'm rolling up, you know, to the store, already looking through the window to see if it's there, impatient to get in there and actually see if it's there, that type of thing. That's the impact that had on me. And like I said, rarely would it disappoint. The stories are awesome. The stories are worthy of Robert E. Howard and, you know, the greats that wrote the novels. So yeah, man, Savage Sword of Conan, the Barbarian. If you love Conan, if you like that character at all, just check it out. Like, I'm not saying like go find an issue these days. I don't even know if you can, but I'm sure you can pull it up online and on YouTube. I'm sure there's something there dedicated to that. But yeah, this is just me musing, you know, rambling on as usual. But yeah, check it out if you like black and white, if you prefer black and white. I don't see why you wouldn't appreciate this, at least a little bit. And once again, the artwork might be hit or miss on a rare occasion, but the stories never are. They're always there. They're always impressive. Yeah, and I collected issue after issue of that. had a huge collection of Savage Sword and Conan the Barbarian, the comic book, which I'm gonna make another video for that, because I actually ended up with issue number 1 of that. Yeah, but that's probably gonna be it. If that alarm has anything to do with it, I'll just use that and kind of jump off here. But yeah, man, it's your boy Scott, kind of lost in the jungle here. The Savage Sword of Conan the Barbarian. That's what's up. All right, I'm out.